Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is your photo news fix from Hawaii.
Which island?
Come on, I want to lay you.
This fix is brought to you by Allen's Camera, the mom and pop camera store that I highly recommend you check out as well as support. Now, if it weren't for Allen at Allen's Camera giving me a place to unbox and sniff test new gear all the way back in 2010,
No, you can't sniff me.
I might not be making this video right now live from Hawaii. So if you're looking to pick up some new or used gear or want to shop a true brick and mortar camera store, check out allenscamera.com or, go there in person and let them know that the Fro sent you. Now, before we get into the first story, I'm obviously not at my studio. I am here in Hawaii thanks to Canon, who brought a bunch of creators out to play with their new cameras, but more on that in just a second. First up, Sirui, who's known more for their tripods and monopods and more recently gotten into making mirrorless lenses, has become the 9th company to join the L Mount Alliance, which is, 9 too many in my opinion. I kid. Actually, I don't kid. I have zero issues with the L Mount Alliance. What I have an issue with is the options you have for L Mount cameras. The lenses that are a part of the L Mount are great. They literally are the same lenses you can get for Sony, Nikon, Fuji, and hopefully one day Canon RF, we hope. But when I read there are now over 20 L Mount cameras, I think, for who, for what? The cameras are a mix of Lumix, Leica, and Sigma bodies, and the world is focused on Sony, Nikon, Canon, and Fuji bodies. Now, I personally see no advantage in investing in the L Mount Alliance. I know I'm not the only one who thinks this. I might be the only one who actually says it publicly, but the L Mount lenses don't offer any distinct advantages, in my opinion, over other mounts. Rant over. Congratulations, Sirui, for being the 9th to be a part of the L Mount Alliance. Next up, Fuji rolled out the big brother to their still back-ordered X100 which I really liked when I reviewed it back in the day. Now, introducing the Fuji GFX 100 RF, a compact point-and-shoot camera that sports a 102 megapixel medium format sensor with a controversial fixed 35 f4 lens. But more on that decision in just a few seconds. Now, before I go too far, I did not get my hands on this camera like a plethora of other creators as my Fuji ban continues 9 years later. But I digress. I'm sure I could borrow one from Allen's Camera when it comes in to review and sniff test as soon as it comes out, and we will see. Now, in terms of other specs, the GFX 100 RF has 4 stops of ND built in, a leaf shutter, 3.2-inch 3-way tilting touchscreen, 5.75 million dot OLED EVF, some video features which to me is kind of stupid in this camera, 20 film simulators for people who drop bank on this camera only to shoot it in JPEG and not RAW. There's a crop toggle, aspect ratio dial, and of course, the same medium format 102 megapixel sensor found in other Fuji bodies. Now onto what is missing: IBIS and a fast lens. The lens first. The 35mm f4 in full frame equivalent is roughly a 28mm f3.1 or 3.2. Personally, I would prefer something much faster, but do understand the compromises that Fuji needed to make in order to make this camera. On the flip side, with a slower f4 lens and no IBIS, the lower light situations become more tricky as you have to bump up the ISO. Is it a deal breaker? For many people, the answer is yes, but how many of those people are going to drop $4,900 on a freaking point and shoot?
I'll give you an answer. Not many.
Exactly, not many. It's not a deal breaker for me, as I understand what Fuji was trying to do here, and I think they did an amazing job with this camera. Look, if you want IBIS and you want fast glass, buy a GFX 100S2 with whatever lenses you want. The GFX 100 RF is not meant to be a catch-all camera, but I wouldn't kick it out of bed if, Fuji would let me play with one and let me out of the penalty box. What do you think? Let me know down below. And finally, Canon has announced their next V camera, the EOS R50V, and I'm currently filming with it right now in Hawaii. That's right, the Canon money train backed right up to the Fro factory and flew me all the way to Hawaii to play with this new camera. Thanks, Canon. You can check out my hands-on preview. It is linked down below. You can think of the R50V as an R50, but redesigned for video. Though the innards are pretty much the same, the body has been totally revamped to be more video-centric and friendly. It does away with the EVF, which I think is a mistake, moves a bunch of the buttons around, moves the ports to the one side versus splitting them up, as a headphone jack, and a bunch of software updates to help creators create.
Duh.
There's now a tally light, dedicated quick live streaming function, where you can now stream in 4K 60, which we all know the gamers, OnlyFans streamers, are going to absolutely love. For those that like to shoot vertical content, not me, Canon has included a tripod thread not only on the bottom, where it traditionally can be found, but also on the side, allowing you to capture all that vertical tickety-tock content that you want. You have the digital hot shoot, same LPE17 battery as the R50, and a new kit 14 to 30 f4 to 6.3 IS STM power zoom lens that is cheap.
I'll take two.
Inexpensive and cheap, coming in at only $330.
Hey, put me down too, man. I get one.
Inside the camera, you've got the same 24 megapixel crop sensor that is not image stabilized. The lack of IBIS is still an issue, as your footage will become very shaky if you don't use their digital IS. But if you use the digital IS, you lose out a little on the wider angle of your lens. You can shoot full width 4K up to 30p, oversampled from 6K. You can shoot 4K 60p with a crop, and full HD up to 120 frames per second. In terms of stills, you can shoot at 15 frames per second with the electronic shutter and 12 frames with the first curtain electronic one. This camera is not really meant for stills, but of course you can shoot them, albeit without an EVF. So what's it gonna cost you? $649 for the body, only $849 with the new 14 to 30 kit lens. And I do have my hands-on preview that is linked down below, which I made right here in Hawaii. Oh, do I have a beautiful room. Thank you, Canon, for my beautiful room. And there you have it. Thank you very much for watching. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.